begin.
What's up, Wise Take? Welcome to another edition of the NFL Wise Stream. It's week 2. I am your host, Patio Joe, and I am joined here once again by my fellow Ty, the man, the 8Ds himself, Paulie D. You can follow him at Paulie8Ds. What's going on, buddy?
What up, man? Week 2. Football's glorious. Great to be back. Nice to see you on the beach, man. Good for you.
Yeah, last week I was in Vegas. This week I'm on the beach of Kona, Hawaii. So, every week we're going to be wondering, where's Patio Joe? So, week 1 was a success. Cash Game absolutely smashed it, top 10%. I mean, we were in that FanDuel contest together. We finished in the top 3. You saw my Cash Game lineup. It was pretty nice. Went well. But as football goes, it's nice. The week just starts over again, and it's a cycle. And now we're back talking again. It's week 2. Before you know it, it's going to be week 17, Paulie. The good thing is that we went the whole week, and there's been no outbreaks of COVID, nothing yet. So that's the good thing. We can keep going, and it's good positive vibes, and we can get back to some normalcy. How did your week 1 go?
Decent. So I played like almost $500 in action and cash for like $550. So small profit. I'll take it, considering like my 2 highest owned players ended up being Marvin Lewis and
Marvin Jones.
I'm sorry, Marvin Jones and Austin Eckler, who Marvin Jones didn't bust like dud that hard, but he certainly wasn't a good play. And Eckler was a heavy dud. So, my 2 highest owned players being that bad, I should have lost money. And to make a little bit of profit, I was happy. I had a ton of fun. I feel like there's a ton of edge in NFL this season, and have been like foaming at the mouth for this slate to get here. And like last week's, I didn't really like love. This one, I do think there's a lot more opportunity. But there's so much to like. You got to have a lot of teams, I think, to cover kind of everything that could end up being the winning plays, which that can be annoying at times. But I do really like the slate. I think there's a ton of ways you could go.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways. I was listening to somebody earlier today, and they brought up a good point. They're like, this is a good slate if you wanted to just play the early only slate, because on the late slate you have Lamar, Mahomes, and Watson. You could be like, and Kyler Murray. You could be like in like first place, and then the afternoon games happen, and you just go down. But because you got some great quarterbacks in the late slate that could put up some major points, and we got some good games too. For this year, Paulie, I've been really concentrating on I feel like if you do like cash, and then they're like, let's pay you play like this, you play your cash game lineups, and then you play your tourney lineups, play enough to where you can at least break even. And it's like, to make money, I think you need to either go one way or the other, or have a huge bankroll. So if you have a smaller bankroll, you need to almost do literally, you have to do what they say, 80 or 90% in cash games and only like 10 to 15% in GPP, so you can actually make money off of those cash games. Because to finish in the top 50% is, they say it's easier. Sometimes it's harder if there's lineup trades. But yeah, I just feel like you need to pick. You're either going to be a GBB player or a cash game player, or have a huge bankroll. What do you think?
Yeah, it depends what your goals are. You know what I mean? It's like, that's really what it comes down to. But I think if you're trying to be use it as a income or secondary or tertiary income, that's definitely the safest and probably long-term most profitable way to approach it. You may not have great years that often, or great days, but the consistency, the longevity, that will certainly be there using that approach. So I agree.
Yeah. All right, that's enough kind of strategy and stuff. Like we said this week, I think we were talking in the pre-show that the key is going to be picking the receivers. I think that's going to be the receiver pool is huge for me. Everywhere else, I kind of know where I sort of want to go. What about you for the macro view of this slate? What do you think?
So I'm mostly talking about from a tournament perspective now. Like, I do think that receiver and tight end are the like widest player pools for positions, and how you approach those and the way it plays out is going to have a big impact. But I do think I just think it's very concentrated. Like last week, I don't think it was as concentrated. It was kind of spread out until Boston Scott kind of became one really chalky play. But this week, there's a handful of plays that not only like will they be popular, but because of their like prices, they're gonna make a certain kind of build popular, right? And I think it's true on both sides. I haven't really done a ton on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, it is certainly gonna be like spend up at running back and quarterback, find value at receiver, find value at tight end, that kind of. And when you know that, I think that opens up a lot of opportunity in GPP. So I do agree. Like receiver could be one of the more like that's where you'll win slate, but I just think that it's like the condensed nature of like the ownership at certain positions are creating a certain kind of build. And in tournaments, I think it's really wide open. There's a ton of super high ceiling guys that are going to be really low owned this slate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So let's just start right into position by position, guys. We're kind of go like we did last week. We're gonna go position by position. We'll break it up into two tiers. Basically what we really prefer. Then if there's any value plays and such like that, then we'll go into some more of like we'll pick kind of games that we like after position by position. We'll give out two core plays like we did last week. We'll do some prop bets. We'll do a survivor pick. Paulie D, you're 0-1. Just want to let you know you had the Colts last week.
Unbelievable. Oh, that's also the team that you picked to win the Super Bowl. So
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
All right. Touche, Paulie D. Touche. All right. Let's go into quarterback. To me, I was talking pre-show, and for FanDuel purposes, I feel like if you just go to the top 7 guys, that's where you're going to get most of your ownership, if not all of it. There's obviously you got Lamar and Mahomes on the same slate. That doesn't happen too often. And then you got Dak Prescott in an absolute nut spot against the Falcons. We saw what Russell Wilson did against them last week. We have a coupling with the fact that Dallas has some injuries to their linebackers. So it's going to be more of an up and down game. And so Dak Prescott is like, obviously the one that kind of stands out for cash game purposes. And then it's like almost like the guy that's going to kind of go unowned because of it, even though he's had 4 top 10 QB performances against the Dolphins. And that's Josh Allen. He's been QB1, QB2, QB2, and QB7 in his 4 starts against the Dolphins. And I just feel like his price at 8,200 in the sandwich between Dak, Kyler, Rodgers, and then Mahomes and Jackson, he's just going to be almost forgotten in some ways. What do you think about that, Paulie, and about the guys up top? I think Dak is the guy in cash. I feel like Lamar, I feel like same thing on Tuesday. If you feel like the Houston Texans are going to come to play, Lamar is going to be a great play on Sunday. But if you feel like they're going to get blown out, he's too much. What do you think, Paulie? And then talk about your guys.
So, I think Josh Allen is one of the best plays on the slate. Like Cam Newton ran all over Miami, and like they could have just run that play every play, and it would have been like Miami cannot defend that run pass option, the option without the pass. Like, and Josh Allen's gonna be way more aggressive. He's much faster, much stronger, everything than Cam is right now. And like I wouldn't be shocked if they like get into this almost run it up, let Allen fucking pile up stats and like pursue the MVP if they continue to, a couple more games like they did in week 1. He had his first time throwing for over 300. They were in control most of that game. I mean, the one Jay Crowder like breakout touchdown pulled the Jets a little close, but really Buffalo controlled that whole game. And he could have had a much bigger game if the Jets, pushed them to score and move the ball at all. And I'm not sure if Miami can do that, but we've just seen the history Allen has against Miami, and that run option, I just don't see them being able to stop him at all. When you have that running floor added to a guy that's capable of going for 300 against a terrible defense, like he's phenomenal. I would think about playing him in cash as well, because I do like Dak Prescott a ton, but I think the industry is split on like him or Zeke for cash, and to me that like is the epitome of not a cash play when you have to decide whether the run game or the pass game for that offense is the way to go, and they're both kind of attractive. So I'm not as high on Dak for cash games because of that reason. I'd rather play Lamar, Josh Allen, or even Matt Ryan in that on the other side, who's just like a lock for 300 plus yards and a handful of touchdowns. So that's in terms of the cash games thing. In terms of tournaments, though, I'm not that into Lamar because I think like you will want to use that money somewhere else. And even if that game is good, where you said like if Houston hangs in, I think Watson actually becomes the better play. So I'm not going to have any Lamar Jackson. It's scary, but I just think quarterback's so deep, and on DraftKings the way the pricing is, outside of Mahomes, it's $1,500 or more discounts to go down, and that just like last week Lamar was a top 5 QB, but if you're gonna pay top dollar, he needs to be number one, and I'm not sure that's gonna happen. So I'm just completely off of him. Mahomes, on the other hand, for tournaments, like he's gonna be like under 5% in my opinion, and so are his skill players. That's kind of interesting. Like I think the Chiefs get a lead, the Chargers try to come back. I think they're veteran enough to move the ball on the Chiefs defense, and this could be a high scoring back and forth game that a sneaky low on Mahomes plus skill players, bring it back with some Chargers, kind of wins the slate. So for tournaments, that's something I'm interested in getting some exposure to. Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be like a top 4 owned quarterback. He won the slate last week. This seems to be just as good of a spot. But similar to the Dak situation, it could also be the run game for Green Bay. We don't know. And that makes me just not want to go there as much because of the price tag and my thought that there's just a ton of cheaper quarterbacks and I need the money for other positions. Like Josh Allen, as I said, like Matt Ryan, all the running quarterbacks as you go down. Deshaun Watson, I think, is certainly in play. Kyler Murray is also a guy I'd be seriously considering for cash. Washington.
Let me talk to you. Let me clip you off right there. I think on DK, that's your cash quarterback.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with that.
At 6,100, I think he should be up where Josh Allen is.
Mm-hmm.
I think he should be up there. And you're going to save $600 with the rushing upside of Kyler Murray. He brings you on top of, I don't care. This Washington defense did well, but I think it was more because the Philly O-line is terrible, too. It was a combination.
I agree, but like Kyler Murray had all those rushing yards and carries last week, and it was because of plays breaking down and the rush getting to him. And Washington, one thing they do have is a legit pass rush. So I expect him get forced into running and making plays again. And, I do agree that Philly's O-line kind of maybe made them look better than they are, but I don't think Arizona's O-line is that much better. And, I do really like Kyler for that reason. I think that they force him to run, and the game could really shoot out because Arizona's D's, not great as well.
All right, Paulie, let's move on to value options. On FanDuel, to me, we were talking, I like some of the guys up top. That's probably who I'm going to play. I don't play a lot of lineups, but if I was paying down, to me, it's like you could sell me on Trubisky in a good matchup at home against the Giants. I don't mind that. For some odd reason, people have been talking about how this is a this is a situation where Jimmy G throws for 4 touchdowns when he's in like the worst possible situation and he has nobody around, but he still throws for 4 touchdowns. I don't buy it, but I guess it could happen. You could have sold me on Tannehill earlier in the week if AJ Brown wasn't out, but now he's out. Everybody else, though, I'm kind of off. I mean, if you wanted to go Tyrod, I guess, but he just doesn't have no flash to me. I just feel like value-wise, it's Trubisky, and that's about it.
For me, I do kind of agree that like you're not getting enough discount off of Kyler Murray on most of these guys, but you like Trubisky. I actually like Daniel Jones. I don't respect the Bears defense. I saw, a weakened Lions offense move the ball on them last week. I think Daniel Jones, looked pretty decent against the Steelers, who are a much better D. And both these teams play at a very fast pace. I wouldn't be shocked to see Danny Jones, post a ceiling kind of close back and forth, 28-24 kind of game where he just gets one running, gets a bunch of yards rushing, and then throws for 300 plus, which we've seen him do a handful of times against teams last year like Tampa Bay, which is kind of a similar D in my opinion. After that, Dwayne Haskins at 5-1 because of the savings, and I think this offense is going to move. I think this is a decent team that's motivated to kind of like compete in the East this year, and I think it's Haskins going to have a couple pretty big games. And then I think Sam Darnold at 5-1 just because it's such a significant discount. They should be playing from behind, and San Fran's D. We saw what Murray and that offense did against them last week. I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets at home kind of hung in there, and Darnold could be a sneaky upside play as well. But mostly it's the guys up top that I talked about in like that mid tier from Murray to like Dak. That's the range I kind of plan to play on, and I do think that Deshaun Watson, like Mahomes, are two of the best, highest ceiling type quarterbacks that are going to be under 5% that are worth playing in GPPs this week.
My bold call of the week is the Jets beating the Niners.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
With what the Niners, they're coming in hurt, like battered and bruised. Now the Jets, they shouldn't have beat the Cowboys at home last year, and they did. They play these weird games at homes and they win, And I feel like this is like a prime spot for the Jets to just win this game. So CK, I hope you're smiling in the back right now. Any other quarterbacks you want to talk about, or can we move to running back? Because I feel like we kind of nailed it. We didn't really talk about him that much, but Matt Ryan, I think, is also. We just mentioned him. I think Matt Ryan is in play. That defense is terrible, and he's going to be throwing. I mean, how many attempts did he have last week? Like 50 or 60? Threw for 450 yards. So you got to like it. Let's move on to running back. To me, like we were talking pre-show, this is the smallest running back pool that I have had in cash in a long time. There's just not very many guys that I feel 100% confident in just rolling out there in a cash game setting. Everybody else has certain question marks. We spoke about how earlier that the questions of playing Dak and Zeke in cash just isn't optimal. I know some people will do it, and I feel like playing cash games is almost like playing blackjack. You either have your set rules or you don't. You either hit on 16s or 15s or you don't. Like cash games, the same thing. Some people stack in cash games. Some people will play the quarterback, you know what I mean? Or you don't. You have a certain steps and you kind of keep to it. And that's the way that you can win consistently, just like in blackjack. So that being said, if I'm going to go with Dak at quarterback, I'm going to fade Zeke in cash. To me, I feel like Derrick Henry is the play on the slate on both sides, especially on FanDuel being a half point. PPR. He did get 4 targets last week. So if he gave us that with 31 carries at 8,300, lock him in. To me, he's the safest play on the slate. AJ Brown.
Their number one receiver's out. Like that could increase the targets.
Mm-hmm. AJ Brown's hurt, and Corey Davis had an illness during the week, so you don't know if he's 100%. But to me, it's Henry. I like Zeke too. I think Dalvin Cook is decent in a GPP setting. The other chalk running back, he's in the value, but I'll just bring it up now because I'm just going to throw it to you after that. Is Jonathan Taylor. We saw Mac go down. We saw Aaron Jones run pretty well against the Vikings last week. Jonathan Taylor is going to be getting the lion's share of the carries. Even if he got 6 targets too, or 6 catches also when he came in. So we know Rivers likes to dump down. So even if Nyheim Hines has a role, I think Taylor at 5,800 is going to be uber chalk also, but a good chalk in cash. So I know you're not as high on him as I am, but you're obviously a GPP guy. I could see the merit in fading him in GPPs because that game might not even shoot out. And I also like other parts of that game better for GPPs in my mind. So another guy that I'll talk, Austin Eckler. I feel like he's going to bounce back. He's in a good spot. I think the game script is going to work in his favor this week, where they're going to have to throw, they're going to have to dump off, they're going to have to try and keep up or slow it down by running with him too. So hopefully he gets those goal line carries this week. Hopefully, I hope so.
Is Eckler the third running back for you in cash this week, or are you not going 3 running backs?
I'm gonna see yet. I really don't know yet. I might try and find somebody else. There's a couple other guys that you could maybe talk to me about, like Raheem Mostert. We also talked, like Zach Moss has been talked about a little bit. He got a 50% running back, almost 50% carries. He got 5 carries in the goal line last week. So I just, there's not a lot when it comes to safe options in cash. So I might go to a place where I might go with Zeke and Henry and just go with a different quarterback, because that's just as viable because you have 6 or 7 of them to pick from. So tell me who talk, on that, on what I've said, and then other guys that you like, because I know you like some other GPP guys.
Yeah, so, to start, Derrick Henry, I would just lock him into cash game lineup right now and wouldn't change. The volume that he gets against this bad defense, everything you just mentioned. And I think he's like one of those good chalk plays in tournaments that you also put him in most of your GPP lineup and, take the 25 plus points he's likely to get and get different elsewhere. Zeke, again, you got to choose the game flow and build accordingly. If you decide that you think Atlanta leads and Dallas has to play from behind, then I think you go with Dak. If you think Dallas leads and Atlanta's trailing, then I think you go with Zeke in terms of cash. But I think you're playing one of those two for sure. It's just which one you're going to decide on.
Mm-hmm.
And then Jonathan Taylor, if I played cash, I would look to get different at one kind of pivotal place to beat the field. And maybe that's not the right approach. But Jonathan Taylor is to me, a lot of factors make this kind of questionable. And I just think that for similar money, you can get, guys with much better guaranteed volume. And I don't mind him as a play, but I think he's getting way too much ownership and hype, and it's got a lot more risk than people are realizing. And we don't know exactly what his role is going to be and how much it's going to increase. It's likely, but also we don't know what his role will be if they're trailing. Minnesota is, certainly capable of leading this game. So we don't know. You know what I mean? I feel like he's a good play, but maybe not cash assets. To that point, though, the guys that I would say are definitely cash options are pricey, and that may not be attainable. But I think I would consider a guy like David Johnson or Kenyon Drake more so for DraftKings that are involved in the game.
I completely agree. If you look at their prices, he's priced up on DraftKings more than he is on FanDuel.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at where he's priced on FanDuel, he's way more chalkier on FanDuel.
Yeah.
Just because he's 5,800. There's nobody other really around. I mean, you could argue David Montgomery. He's going to get the volume at 5,600 is the guy around his same price. But, or Ronald Jones. We haven't talked about Ronald Jones yet, but I said before pre-show, I'm like, if Fournette wasn't there, Ronald Jones would be just as chalky this week. But because Fournette's there, they're going to kind of neuter each other. But all those guys that you mentioned, like Drake is 6,600. That's almost, that's $800 more than, David Johnson is 7,200 on FanDuel compared to 58. You see the difference? Like, I could see how you look at JT on DK and you're like, he's okay. I don't need him. On FanDuel, he's kind of like almost like a really good play,
I agree. I do agree. It's much better on FanDuel, and I think in cash you just do it, like you said, for the block. But he's just a play that I think is too high. Going to be too high owned for what is like probability of being as valuable as that ownership would require almost. What about Miles Sanders' role in Philly? Like, does he just come in and become the number one guy, 100% of carries? Not 100, but a larger workload than Taylor.
I think that he gets the roles. I just don't know how healthy he is. So they might just not give him a full complement of snaps just because of it's only the first week for him, and it's the second week for most of these guys. There was only last week there was only 3 or 4 guys that played 75% of the snaps that were running backs. So everybody's got to relax on some of these guys' roles and let's see how it really shakes out. All the other running backs, I'm not really, you could, there's question marks here and there from certain guys. I know Fournette is kind of, people to go just a little bit contrarian because everybody's going to go Rojo. And I could see where Fournette could get a little run this week. There's really nobody else that I'm really into that I would feel confident rolling out there that you're going to absolutely need.
So how do you feel about Saquon as a pivot off Zeke in tournaments?
Yeah, I feel like Saquon could totally, the Bears aren't great stopping the run. You can run at on the edges to them. I feel like you can attack them.
Their nose tackle, Eddie Johnson or Eddie, their Pro Bowl nose tackle is out this week.
So he's going to be nobody's going to even go to him because people feel like, well, if I'm going to pay 9, I'll pay 10.5. C-Mac. I mean, we didn't even mention C-Mac. To me, it's like, you just don't need him. I don't know. It's maybe DK.
So on DraftKings, he's always in the conversation. I'm definitely going to be underweight on him, but he's kind of at the point of too low ownership not to play him some if you're building multiple teams. Because, last year I faded McCaffrey, I think, twice. And both times after, I said never again. And after the second, I just never faded him. And, these are those kind of opportunities. He could easily break the slate, get 15 catches because they're trailing, and it's a back-and-forth game, and Tampa Bay's not that great defensively, and get 3 touchdowns on top of 100 receiving and rushing and, just absolutely smash. And as you've mentioned, the pool is small. So, if he goes for that massive ceiling and no one's anywhere near, you're going to need him to win the tournament. So initially I was completely off of him, and now because of where he's looking at coming in, I think it's worth, getting. If you were building 10 teams in GPPs, I would say you got to play him on 2. If you just completely fade him, you're not doing GPPs right. And Barkley I like more because he's, more affordable. I think in a better spot, whether they're trailing or leading. And if they're leading, it's probably because he broke off a couple. But he's projected for 5% ownership, way too low for such a talent. you could say similar things about Dalvin Cook. I have a little more respect for the Indy D line. But, I mean, they really have like two mouths to feed. And, it wouldn't be out of nowhere for him to get 10 targets, catches, multiple touchdowns, break a play. And he's 7'6" now. So these running backs you got to play them in GPPs because of their ownership. Aaron Jones, 4% projection right now in DraftKings. He was heavily involved in their pass game, and you can run all over the Lions. Last year, the Packers showed us they wanted to run the ball. Like, they could go back to that. Like, he's too low on for what he had, like 4 or 5 stick-breaking weeks last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you got to get on. I do like Eckler as a bounce back. I do really like Kenyon Drake, David Johnson. I think Najeem Hines is certainly as viable as Taylor in tournament. It's Melvin Gordon now that Lindsey's ruled out. It's a deeper position for tournament, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I'd go Gordon against Pittsburgh. They look like to be the best defense in the league. They look pretty damn good. All right, Paulie, let's move to receiver. I'm going to let you start it off. Let's lead off with receiver. I feel like receiver is going to be the key this week in both tournaments and GPPs. And cash, I feel like in cash, that's where you're going to probably be able to get different because there's so many options. And people, I think it's not going to be just one build where everybody's going to go to like sometimes there is. So that being said, Paulie, who do you like at the receiving spot this week?
So like on the higher end, like I think this is where you want to try to get ownership. I feel like everyone's going to be paying down, and the high end receivers to me separate the most from like the mid and value than any other position. Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Julio, Thielen have such higher target projections, upside, like at low ownerships, maybe with the exception of Adams, that you can get a ton of leverage on the field by instead of going to Lamar Jackson, taking a Kyler Murray, who there's no way like. Say they both have good games, that Lamar's outperforming him by more than 10 points because quarterbacks just don't score that more than 35, 40 on DraftKings or either site, where a receiver can go absolutely nuts and go for 50, 55 points on DraftKings and even FanDuel like 35, 40. And another similarly priced value guy have a good game, go for 15 to 20, but the gap is really wide. So guys like Hopkins, especially paired with Tyler, I like a lot. Tyreek Hill is kind of interesting to me, although I do respect the Chargers secondary, but I think he's matchup proof, and at 2% ownership, he's too big. He had 40, 3 or 4 games where he went broke Slate. Thielen to me seems like, in terms of price, the safest like projection, target projection. Like I don't see how he doesn't get 10 plus, and in a good spot against the Colts. So I do like spending up. There's other guys like Schuster. The Corey Davis had a game on Denver, and Schuster with Big Ben, he looked great too. 6'5", like that. It's a really deep position, but I do think that high guys kind of separate, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, I think Devontae Adams is the number 1 receiver again this week. He's going to be the target monster for Aaron Rodgers' revenge tour. I like what you said about Tyreek Hill. Nobody's going to have him. Mike Evans, I think, is sort of going to go under the radar a little bit, but there's no Godwin this week. So he's going to get more targets anyways. I like what you said about Thielen. The guy that I'm looking at, Juju also, to piggyback on what you said about Juju, he's going to have a rookie corner on him in the slot on Sunday.
Chris Harris.
Yeah, so Chris Harris left. So Calvin Ridley, obviously that guy is just becoming a man. 7,000, but then 7,100 on FanDuel. But the guy I think I like the most out of that group and safest, almost squeaky wheel gets the grease, sort of, is A-Rob. Going up against the Giants corners and getting at least 9 to 10 targets. And I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease and he gets in the end zone this week. I like Allen Robinson at 7K. What do you think about A-Rob?
I'm fine with him. Juju just torched them. I think there's a good chance the Giants could be playing from behind. Like as I mentioned, these are two of the faster paced offenses, and if they're playing from in front, it's probably because he did really well too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's got as high a ceiling as the other guys we mentioned, and not cheap, enough of a savings off of them where I would like prioritize him as one of my higher owned guys. But I do like him. The problem is just as we go down, there's a ton of guys. It's going to be challenging for me to really spend up a receiver because so many good players at receiver. Like Amari Cooper at 6'3", play. Will Fuller, if they're trailing, we saw the target volume we got last week. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But I'm totally fine with Allen Robinson, but I would not. There's no way he's like in my top 5 highest owned receivers this week.
Mm. All right, and then so now below 7K for me, obviously there's just another slew of receivers. We got T.Y. Hilton is going to be going up against Holden Hill part of the time. We got his home road splits. He's the guy I love in GPPs or whatever. If you're gonna fade Taylor in that whole game or the running back, and then I think the guy that as a one-off, I think he's going to be the highest one-off of anybody in the slate. And that's Marquis Brown. I feel like he's just ready to blow up. And he's 6,200 on FanDuel. He's right around that price with just a blow up price. I think people will play him in cash. I just don't know if he's cash game playable because he doesn't get over 8 targets most of the time in any game. So once again, if you think that Houston's going to come to play, then maybe Marquise Brown, he's going to get more than 8 targets. Michael Gallup is going to be facing the same guy that DK Metcalf absolutely butt raped last week, Isaiah Oliver. So we can't forget about Michael Gallup. I actually like Gallup better than any other Dallas receiver this week. He's my favorite.
They lost their pass-catching tight end, right? So Dalton Schultz is just primarily a blocking tight end. So they're going to be playing a lot of 4 wide sets. And, all 3 of those receivers, like, it's hard. That's the tough part about picking Dak because I don't know which one of them to pair him with. I like them all. So it's tough to make a significant position on one of those 3. Because then you just know the other guy's going to have the bigger game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Deontay Johnson is another guy at 5,800. I think is in for a huge day. For Pittsburgh. And then, then you got the guys at the bottom that, I think the fool's gold is Russell Gage this week, guys. I would totally fade him. He is absolutely fool's gold. Do not play him. And obviously, he's probably going to score 2 touchdowns now. But Russell Gage, I do not like. Paris Campbell is another great play. He got 9 or 10 targets from Mr. Rivers last week, and he runs just the route tree that Rivers throws. So I like Paris Campbell, too, as a good pivot. And then probably the last guy I'll talk about, and then I'll throw it to you, is Rashad Perriman. There's no Crowder. There's basically Perriman against the secondary missing Sherman. So I just feel like volume at 5,200, all it takes is one, and he makes his price. What are you looking at in value talent for DK?
So I love what you said about Perriman. The guy had a awesome season last year, and to me it's a very similar situation. A quarterback that can get him the ball. Last week he had an extremely tough matchup that no receivers really beat last year, and then now you have him this week as the only receiver in sight. They should be trailing, or if they're leading, it's because he did well. He's 3,900 on DraftKings. Really good upside play. I like it. There's a ton. Love Paris Campbell. I think he's just a freak in the making, going to be super talented. And having a guy like Rivers that can get him the ball, I think that relationship's only going to grow. And by the end of the year, he'll be this year's DK Metcalf. Mike Williams for the Chargers, right? They should be trailing. He didn't seem hurt at all last week. Could have had a much bigger game. Clearly, Tyrod likes to get the ball out to his wideouts and down the field. He's way too cheap for 4-2 for a guy with that type of upside. We also have Corey Davis. Now coming off a great game, a number 5 draft pick 3 years ago, just kind of forgotten after he got passed by AJ Brown, who's out against a terrible defense at 4K. That's a phenomenal value play. There's so much. Darius Slayton, against the Bears secondary, like the guy's a freak. He's had nothing but ceiling games for the Giants. They could be trailing. Deontay Johnson's 4-5, as you mentioned on DraftKings. CeeDee Lamb is 4-7. There are so many cheap value receivers on DraftKings, and I do like them. I will mix them in, but I don't think they have the type of ceiling that the expensive guys do. Which to me, I'm going to really make a conscientious effort to get at least 2 expensive receivers into a lot of lineups, because I think that's going to differentiate me from the field.
Does Marquis Brown have that ceiling?
Oh, for sure. It's just his floor is also extremely painful as well.
Do we like any of the receivers in the Rams game? I mean, Robert Woods is like
them both.
Up with 8 targets. You know what I mean? Like 8 or 10 targets.
Always want to target the Eagles secondary. So for sure.
Yeah. All right. Any other receivers we want to talk about? MBS, I think is going up bad.
I'll say that. I will be going back to Marvin Jones.
Yeah. All right.
What do you think about Christian Kirk? Actually, I want to ask you about him.
Christian Kirk is actually a decent dart throw. He had 5 targets on Sunday, only caught 1 of them, but only had 26 less air yards than D-Hop.
Yeah.
So that means that they're trying to go to him. And I feel like D-Hop, they're going to be like, D-Hop and Kyler are butt buddies now. They're going to go all over them, and they're going to leave Kirk open now. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't mind that at all. I think he's a decent play, because we know he's going to have 2 or 3 games a year where he's going to go way above what his price is. So, Moving on to tight end, I really feel like it's the chalky plays are either pay up for Kelsey or Andrews, or we're going to go very cheap with guys like, believe it or not, Jordan Reed. Now that he is the starting tight end for the Niners on Sunday against the Jets. Jonnu Smith down below, Logan Thomas, and Dan Arnold. Those are the guys at the bottom. But I feel like if you're playing GPPs, the guys in the middle are where you're going to get the 0 ownership. A guy like Evan Ingram, Chicago gave up some points to the tight end last week. So Evan Ingram had a terrible week last week, and everybody saw it on Monday Night Football, and nobody's going to go to him.
Yep.
So I like that. Another guy, I think that I said fade Russell Gage is because Hayden Hurst is going to have the week this week. Hayden Hurst was covered by Jamal Adams, and that's why he didn't have a good week 1, and that's why Gage blew up. We have 2 starting linebackers out for the Cowboys, and their safety is doo-doo. So Hayden Hurst gets off the schneid, and at 5,700, I like him. And then I think if you're going to do your any Packers kind of stack, I feel like you want to bring it back with TJ Hawkinson.
Oh yeah.
That's my tight end breakdown this week. Ertz and Goddard, obviously, I think is great if you want to throw them in GPPs. But the guys down below, like Dan Arnold, the Skins gave up 2 touchdowns or all those to Philly last week, and Dan Arnold's for Arizona is going to be there. So I think he's viable, and Logan Thomas seems like he's okay, but I think the Arizona, I don't think you could pick on Arizona anymore with the tight end position with Budda Baker and Isaiah Simmons going around there stopping that. So Paulie, tell me what you like about tight end.
I think it's so deep. Just like I like the idea of paying up at receivers, I do think this is a good Kelsey spot, and I think he'll be under 10%. And when he has his ceiling games over 100 yards receiving, 8+ targets and multiple touchdowns, he can really separate from the field. So I think it's worth kind of forcing some ownership to him, especially paired up with a 2% Pat Mahomes. I think Zach Ertz is in just as good a spot as last week, and no one's going to play him this time. That's kind of interesting. TJ Hawkinson, Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst, Noah Fant looked phenomenal. I think he's like one of the best tight end athletes out there, and they're just lacking receiver. We don't have the Cortland Sutton news, but we know that Philip Lindsay's already out. That's one of the big mouths to feed in the pass game to them. So he's interesting. Jonnu Smith, with the A.J. Brown out. Logan Thomas had a ton of the pass game market share. A good athlete, super cheap. Although I do agree that Arizona's going to be better. Chris Herndon, if the Jets do move the ball and score points, and it's not through the receivers, then it's got to be with Chris Herndon, who's 3-4 on DraftKings, which I like him just as well. He was popular last week, probably won't have any ownership. It's deep. I'm not going to really have anyone too highly owned at this position because I can make a case for any of these guys being the best played position.
Yeah, I'm with it. And, I like Andrews too. He's just like, man, he's becoming up there with all of them. Mm-hmm. All right, Paulie, I think that's going to do it. Oh, defense this week. Me, I like the Steelers and the Rams on FanDuel up top. Niners, Bills, and Ravens, I guess you could have them, but I just feel like the Steelers are in a better place at home. We saw what the Skins did to the Philly. So Rams with Aaron Donald and that front line, I think is going to have their way. And then if I want to go down to Value Town, I feel like the Colts. Going back to the Colts, I don't mind that. I'm going back to that well. That's a good defense. They have some good players on there. I feel like the Cardinals are also another good spot. They held San Francisco to 20 points last week, sacked Garoppolo 3 times. We know that Washington's offense is still a work in progress. So you got Peterson, Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons. I like this Cardinals D on Sunday against Washington. And then I know there's some decent value on DK. I know the Rams are decent value too, but I'm pretty much going to stick to the Cardinals, Colts, Steelers, and Rams.
Yep. I mean, I like most of those. I do think there's potential for one of the pricey defenses to break the slate this week. There's a couple that I think are in good matchups.
Mm-hmm.
Buffalo, Pittsburgh. But ultimately I think I'll end up paying down again. I think the Giants are in play. I think Trubisky is capable of pick-sixing multiple times, fumbling, just becoming a disaster. He was on the verge of that last week and then turned it around. Who else was cheap that I liked? The Jets, as we talked about, the San Francisco 49ers kind of, just really falling apart, going across the country. Don't mind the Jets for cheap. Don't mind the Redskins again, just think they got a lot of talent on the D-line. The Rams, the Eagles' O-line is so beat up, you want to attack that. I feel like there's one I'm forgetting. What do you think about the Chiefs and their good pass rush against the Chargers beat up Oakland?
Tyrod Taylor. I would look at how he takes sacks because he can move. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
That's I think I could see it. I mean, they've taken 10 days off, so I don't mind it. I think there's definitely a a very thing. But honestly, if you think about it, the Chiefs are probably at a disadvantage. This is the first time they're going to go play the Chargers in LA and not be the fan favorite. I mean, the Chargers are actually in a good spot at home with their fans cheering them along. Oh, wait a minute, there won't be any. But yeah, there'll be definite. That stadium looked nice though. I saw that last week. I can't wait to go visit that. All right, Paulie, that is going to do it for the position by position. Now we're going to get to the game by game selection. We're each going to pick a game now that we like. We're going to talk about and just dissect and stuff like that. I'm going to go with one, and then Paul's going to go with the other, and then we're going to maybe talk about a game we might want to fade or something like that, and then we'll move on. So I just got a special guest for everybody to talk about the game that I am going to talk about. It's going to be the premier game of the week. We have the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Dallas to take on the Dallas Cowboys, and it is a Joe Buck special. I'm bringing in my fan, Joe. How are you doing today, Joe? Good to see you. Oh, are you done? Are your pants still at your ankles? Looking at videos of Zeke and Dak Prescott, you ready for this game? Oh, you and Mr. Gallup, I bet you're gulping something of his, yeah? Or how about Mr. Cooper? Oh, I bet you're eating lamb this weekend too, huh? Yeah, doing all that with your boy, Troy Aikman, yeah. Are you going to have a good weekend? Good. Thank you, Joe Buck. Bye. Back to Hawaii. There I am. All right. So, anyways, though, this is a great game, guys. I love this game. It is the chalk game of the night. I think there's a lot of ways to go, but yet I like just the group of players to have. There's not this I'm going to throw this dart throw that's going to come out and do well. To me, it's like you could either go Dak or Ryan. Then you could go with Zeke. I think if you go with Ryan, I don't mind that. And I like Gallup. We talked about Gallup. We talked about CeeDee Lamb. I like them both more than Cooper. I like Ridley a little bit more than Julio. And then I like Hayden Hurst, too. I feel like those are the guys that I'm going to have in that game. I'm going to have variations of that, and that's what I'm going to go to war with. Paulie, what do you think of this game? And then tell me about what game you like.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the clear chalk game stack. Going to have a ton of high ownership. I think it's now the highest total on the slate. And I think week one, Dallas was number 1 in pace, and Atlanta was number 3. Dallas losing the tight end forces them into more 4 wide, more passing. It's just all sizes up for a high scoring back and forth kind of game. Not much you could really say to knock the game. The game I'm going to talk about, I've already kind of alluded to a few times, but the Chiefs, Chargers, I think you can get Mahomes and skilled players at way too crazy low ownership. They're like the 3rd highest implied total on the slate, and they're going to be 5% owned or less. And then there's guys to run it back with the Chargers that are probably underpriced, and I expect them to be able to move the ball and score on the Chiefs defense that gave up a ton of scoring in yards last year. So like Austin Eckler at low ownership, Mike Williams, Hunter Henry, just a really, really awesome low ownership, high upside stack for GPPs that, I think is just too good to pass up, not getting any exposure to.
Mm-hmm. And is there any game that, I mean, obviously we talked about the chalky game. You're going to have a little bit. Is there any game that you're going to totally fade? Obviously there's obvious games no, I'm not going to have it. But is there any popular other game that the public you think's on that, you're going to be off of it? Baltimore, Houston. I feel like that's going to be a popular game just because of the name value. We didn't really talk about that. What do you think? I feel like I can go one-offs there and there, and if you wanted to do a stack, you could. Very simple. But what about that game?
I mean, Houston's one of the slower, most run dominant offenses out there. Um, they did not look good week one, so Baltimore could run away and then, pull the starters a little early. Like, I agree, it's dangerous. I think, like, if you like that game to be the best on the slate, then you got to go to Deshaun Watson and the Houston guys more so than the Baltimore stars. Because without them performing, and they're the lower owned and the lower priced, like, I don't see those guys being the best plays on the slate from Baltimore.
Do you prefer Dobbins or Ingram?
Oh, man. Neither, but if I had to choose, I guess I would go with Dobbins.
All right. Let's move on to our core plays, Paulie. We got two. I think we each are going to just lock in Derrick Henry on one of our others. My other core play, and then I will have the other two core plays. My other core play is going to be Jonathan Taylor. I'm just going to take it at 5,800, lock him in, and it will give you the opportunity to where if you wanted to pay up for receivers, you could. If you even wanted to pay up for Zeke in that other third running back spot, you could also. So to me, my two right now core plays, Derrick Henry at 8,300 on FanDuel and Jonathan Taylor at 5,800. Paulie D, you have Derrick Henry at, what is his price on DK?
I think it's 79.
Okay.
No,
And what is your other core play?
Man, that's hard to really commit to somebody as a core play on this wide of a slate, but
you give us a value play, something like
that. No, I know. I'm probably torn right now between Adam Thielen or Paris Campbell for value at receiver. Really like Paris Campbell, the volume, the talent, how bad Minnesota secondary is, and then just love the Thielen's role and lack of competition for targets, skill set. Probably one of those two at receiver will be one of my higher owned plays, or I may go back to Marvin Jones because Galladay's out, and I expect him to be trailing, and he's had a history of good games against the Packers.
All right, good. All right, so right now we're going to go with Henry and Paris Campbell because you're going to be fading JT in cash on DK anyways. So to get a piece of that offense, it's almost perfect fit. Sometimes when I'm trying to look for core plays, you're looking for the value plays that will allow you to make the choice to pick the big guys that you want. You're going to have your preferences. You're going to like, if somebody's going to like Zeke, somebody's going to like Henry, somebody's going to like this. So it's like, we're not going to give you all just like the best top plays. We're going to give you the ones to fit in, the ones for you make the choice. All right, some prop bet times, and then we're going to go survivor pick questions, and then we'll get out of here, Paulie. All right. Prop betting time. Paulie D, here we go. Josh Allen rushing yards over under 34.5.
Oh my God, way over.
That's only minus 112.
Way over.
Yeah, that's not a bad. I wouldn't mind that. I don't bet, player props at all, but wow, that seems like an easy gimme. Let's see here. Receiving yards. Tyreek Hill, 67.5 over under.
67.5.
67. 60.
I'll go over.
All right. Let's see here. Passing yards. Dak Prescott, 299.5.
Good question. I'll say under.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I still think he has a good game, but maybe some on the ground or, efficient throwing. Only way I think he gets like way over 3 is if they're trailing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right, and receiving yards, Juju Smith-Schuster, 59.5.
That's a good one too. 59.5. I guess I'll go over, but I don't like. I don't love it. You know what I mean? I'm not like hyper confident in that, but if I had to choose, I'd say over. But I think that's like a pretty accurate number.
Mm. All right, Paulie D, we're going to go to Survivor Picks. You're going to get first shot this time.
I can't believe I'm out week 1. That's no fun. But let me see. I will go with the I'll go with the Bills.
You're going to go to the Bills. All right. And I'm going to go with the Steelers. All right. Let's go. Question time. All right. Basically, we go, somebody saying Hines is the play. Everybody and their mom keeps hyping Taylor due to his touches. Fade 100%. I think in GPPs, Marty, you could fade Taylor 100%. I think in cash, he is just going to be so high owned to take the free square and get different on receiver. Marty also thinks that the Indy defense is the play this week. I agree. Juju, Robinson, and Miller are all good plays. I agree to that. Let's see. This one says, I need a good FanDuel roster for week 2. We'll split the winnings. Wow.
All right.
Look at that.
Hit me up.
$1. There you go. Hey, it could be for like 500. You never know. Wig, our man Wig, do you think Rivers can still throw downfield? I prefer Campbell over T.Y.
I prefer Campbell over T.Y. too. And yes, I do think he can throw downfield.
I do too. All right. Kirk was sacrificed to Sherman's side last week. It's Kirk week this week. I can understand that. That's it. All right. I think that's all the questions. Bryson likes both takes with the Bills and the Steelers, and tells us to see you at the top. I like that. Anything else any other bold calls this week, Paulie?
Bold calls. But saying I'm with you on that Jets victory. Let's roll with that.
Yeah. Steve Sam says Crown or Jameson's. I don't drink either, so you can talk that one. That's all you.
If it's shots, Jameson. If it's like a mixed drink, Crown. Like I like a Crown and Coke, Crown and a bunch of things. But if I'm at a bar drinking beers and shots, it's Jameson.
You know me, I hang out with my ladies. I got Mary Jane on the right and I got Molly on the left. Yeah. That's what I got. So anyways, all right, guys, that's going to do it for week 2 NFL Wise stream. Be sure to look for the content coming out for the cash game article, obviously. And Paulie will have an article, and so will CK, going over core plays and such and GPPs. So be sure to join the nation and get the promo code NFL20. Get a day pass, get a monthly pass. Go and join the Slack. We're hanging out in the Slack. Leading up Saturday night, I'm hanging out in the Slack, answering questions. And Sunday morning, before the kids wake up, I'm trying to answer as much as I can. So we thank you all for joining and spending another Friday night after hours with the Wise Take crew. For Paulie D. I am Patio Joe, and as our man CK says in the back, good luck.
Yeah.